Hello and welcome to this chat view with Jonathan Altfeld and the English sisters.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hello.
It's such an honour to be talking to one of the top trainers in the world.
Yes, it is. It's a great honour.
So, and you've got your beautiful new website, which we've just looked at.
Yeah.
Oh.
We were reading some of your articles.
Well, I hope they were interesting. The content is 14 years in the making, but the design is less than a month old.
Wow, congratulations.
Wow, congratulations.
It's very user friendly.
It is, it's lovely.
And we know
It's to meet you, by the way.
Sorry?
I said it's a pleasure to meet you both, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. That's lovely.
It is, yeah.
Well,
how'd you like?
Sorry, well, there's a little bit of a time delay here, so we're going to have to work with that. So you go, speak.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Would you like to start?
We'd just like to...
No. Oh, we seem to have the sound. The auditory seems to be going. Can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. There's just a bit of a lag.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, Jonathan, you start wherever you feel more comfortable, whenever you're ready. Just tell us what you're up to now at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'm running a lot of courses. I'm doing pretty much what I've always been doing, run courses, do coaching, and other interesting projects like modeling projects of various kinds. I tend to get focused on specific uses of NLP, specific practical applications of NLP. I don't like to spend a whole lot of time in the theoretical. I'm happy to discuss the theoretical, but I'm much more interested by stories and explorations and practice of, okay, well, how can I actually make it work?
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
Well, that's up our street, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what we like doing.
Yeah,
sure.
So, yeah.
I think that's what the normal person in the street, if whoever's listening to this, if they've never come across NLP before, because we know there'll be a lot of trainers listening and a lot of experts in the field, but there'll also be the man on the street or lady on the street that's never come across it, and they're going to say, well, how is this going to make a difference to my life?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think let's begin from an interesting friend. Can I ask when you two started studying? Because it's been a while, right?
Well, it's not been that long. It's been about 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that. We're very new, actually, to NLP.
We're baby NLPers.
Yeah.
Well, very new, too. Yeah, I am. Well, in terms of the overall scale of the field, I'm very new. I started in 1996, 1997. Most of my training started in 1997. And I attended courses after that, of course, as well. But 1997 was my big first year. So you've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. I'm sure that in your own journey and your own travels, you've attended courses and you've seen that there's a big dichotomy between the approach and the attitude people show up at courses with. In other words, how am I going to make my own life better? How can I use this in A, B, C, whatever different content?
Yeah.
So there's it might be personal relationships, it might be friendships, it might be influence, it might be flirting, or these kinds of things. It might be business management. It might be let's say personal interests or change work or whatever particular reasons people have for approaching NLP. It's not like it used to be 30, 35 years ago when the only people who were interested in NLP were either therapists looking for more eclectic skills or clients. And they didn't really pursue NLP. They were just looking for changes.
Yeah.
So now we've got so many different people exploring NLP for lots of different reasons. Now, since we have that natural thing going on where people are showing up for different reasons, I have always felt that the typical approach to NLP training, which goes through practitioner, master practitioner, and training's training, and that specific sequence is not right for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that people really should start from their outcomes in mind and then ignore the cookie-cutter approach unless it happens to fit for them. I think they're in the minority. You get people who attend every course under the sun because they're seminar junkies or they just want to learn everything about NLP, and that's great. That's to be celebrated. But that's not most people.
No.
Right?
Yeah, if they're having a good time, great.
Yeah.
It's when you meet these people that are going to course after course, like what we often meet, and then they come to us for help, and they say, "What are you doing? Because you're always so happy. We can see that you're actually a applying NLP in your daily lives,
Yeah.
whereas we can't. And we say, well, why can't you? And it seems as soon as they leave the frame of the seminar, they go back into their everyday lives.
It finishes.
It finishes.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And they don't apply the techniques at home. So they just stay stuck.
Often true. So let's look at that for a minute. Let's look at that phenomenon. Regardless of why they showed up at NLP, the difference between the seminar space and home or work, right? So first of all learning is state dependent. That's the big missing piece that most people don't pay attention to. All learning is state dependent. So if somebody is learning some extraordinary NLP skills, regardless of what level they get to, those learnings are most closely anchored to the space in which they learn them, or the emotional state in which they learn them. We have also to make a difference between, or a distinction between, an external context and an internal or emotional context. So the emotional state in which they learn skills. So here's the big question. What is the predominant emotional state of most of the people at NLP courses you've been to?
They're in trance.
Sure, trance. And
so they're in a good state. They're on a high.
They're high.
Yes. Okay, so lots of different kinds of high states. You've got curiosity, maybe mild frustration on occasion, followed by elation and the aha moments that they get, and the playful and fun states they get into when they do exercises, and the thoughtful and insightful and maybe focused states, typically good states.
Yeah.
So let's now shift contexts to the home state or work state. What kinds of frequent states do people get into in work settings or sales settings or home settings? Maybe nervous, anticipation, maybe a little concern, a little bit of worry, a little bit of distraction, all these kinds of things. So we've got a big dichotomy between what people often encounter at home or at work and what they get at the seminar space.
Yeah.
So if all learning is state dependent and people are getting a lot of their NLP skills in a seminar context, how do they bridge the gap to the home environment or to the office environment?
Yeah.
And the biggest distinction I've found is that there are people who simply just do not make a commitment to themselves to create learning opportunities outside of the seminar space. That has to be there or people just don't get it.
Yeah,
they just don't make it their own.
Yeah, they have to commit, like what you say. They have to take those exercises and actually apply them every day to sort of like create a habit, a home habit or a work habit. That's what we actually did, didn't we?
Well, we were lucky because we had each other as well. So we were kept on reminding each other.
We would talk about it.
We were like little anchors of each other. Yeah, every time we would, so it was cool. But I suppose if you're just by yourself and you go to the seminar and then you come back into your work environment, you know, you kind of might lose it.
Well, a lot of people do lose it.
And so you kind of give them, what do you do so that they don't lose it, sort of thing?
Well, first of all, I noticed it.
Yeah.
So that's good.
That's good, yeah.
Thumbs up.
That's the starting point. And I noticed it before I ever took an NLP course.
Yeah.
There's something I was doing a little bit differently when I was studying NLP, and differently than, say, most of the other people I knew who were learning in practitioner or master practitioner courses. I was in context at the time, away from home, working and commuting to another workplace. I was a consultant at the time in the artificial intelligence industry. And I was away from home for 4 or 5 nights a week, working during the day, sitting in a corporate apartment, and idle in the evening. I had lots of time on my hands. So often at the beginning of my evenings, I'd sit and I'd crack about 4 or 5 NLP books in front of me. I'd keep them all open, kind of, all in front of me. And instead of reading cover to cover, I'd be looking for pieces of parallels in multiple books, creating connections across sites. Right? So I wasn't reading them cover to cover. I was reading them piecemeal, looking for things that could connect and help me make eclectic connections between materials and ideas. That was the first thing. Then I would take whatever distinctions I was uncovering at the time, whether or not I had them accurate, and I would go out and test them that very night. That was my commitment. I'd take little index cards with whatever discovery I was exploring, and I would go out to bookstores, bars, restaurants, talk with other people, tourists, whomever I had to start conversations with, and I would test stuff out every single night, repeatedly, not just once or twice. And what I ended up with was a sense of knowing that there was no discovery, there was no internalization of what I was learning until I was using it.
Right.
That it wasn't a skill set until I was using it. And then I happened to get lucky enough to find and then attend a 14-day practitioner training with a guy by the name of Rex Stephen Sykes, who to this day, I mean, Richard Bandler and John Laval, they were both wonderful, and I loved what I got from both of them. And I also have to say that the foundational skills I got from Rex were central to how I view my own NLP skills today. I don't think I would be as good at calibrating, for example, had I not taken Rex's training. He's amazing. He's unfortunately not training NLP anymore, like regularly, although he has hinted to me that he's available for hosting. So I may end up.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to get him to a workshop.
You should.
And train for.
You must do something together.
That'd be nice. The moment I started taking Rex's practitioner course, I found out within 2 or 3 days that months of study on my own did not compare to the live training environment. That was a big, big learning lesson. I mean, I wouldn't have changed it after the fact. I thought it was valuable, it was interesting, but I was missing some distinctions about creating exercise drills that I learned from Rex, and that was really important. That gave me some additional wrinkles to the process. And after taking Rex's prac course, and Richard and John's master prac course, and then trainer's training, and other courses beyond that, my observation was that extraordinary exercise drills are constructed from a combination of A, wanting a specific outcome, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, creating good feedback loops, and then constructing an Ericksonian task type exercise whereby you do something and the doing of that thing results in the discovery, whatever the discovery needs to be.
Yes.
But usually it has to involve an aha moment where it hits somehow, and then from that point forward, take the leap, and then you're capable of something more extraordinary. So I don't think it's all about rote. I don't think you can read a book and suddenly get good at NLP. You have to internalize some leap or some leaps where the knowledge gels into behavior.
That's right.
So I'm heavily focused on exercise drills as a let's say an area of study. I think it's fascinating.
Well, it's fascinating the fact that you read all those books and then you went out there to the bar or to the bookstore. I mean, what was one of the first things you did? Can you remember it? One of the first little exercises you went out to try?
I was fascinated with exploring pattern interrupts. Not for the sake of just keeping people in an interrupt state, but in terms of discovering how easily people could be led out of whatever pattern behavior they were in. And at that point, new opportunities could become open. Windows would open, doorways would open that wouldn't have been there before. Like just dropping a seed of discovery in front of somebody and seeing if they snatch it up.
Right.
It could be as simple as being in a bookstore next to somebody else who happens to be scanning books, and you see them stop on a certain book, and gee, you can't help but notice what book they're looking at, and you just happen to drop it in like, oh man, that book was amazing, but if you really want another book that's even better than that one, just let me know. And then leave it without saying anything else, and see if they're curious enough to want to know more. And at that point, the conversation could be led somewhere else. Or if somebody's looking at a book on healing one thing using a traditional therapeutic approach that takes months or years, and you happen to know a better or faster way of solving that, you could say, well, if you really wanted to solve that in 5 minutes without any discomfort, you'd probably look at this book over here. And then don't actually show them the book. Wait for them to need clarification.
Right. So the frustration there,
You want to let it simmer a little bit.
Yeah, frustration, curiosity,
I want to know what that is.
Right, yeah. So that was one of the first things you got up to then, was it?
That was the first things I got. And so I started to notice when I was doing that more consistently, more regularly, that there were certain parallels you could notice about people who had a pattern interrupt. And yes, they talk about it, they describe how people who are interrupted out of some pattern, they have certain behaviors. But until you see it playing out on someone's face, until you start counting the seconds between the different responses you'll get from different people, I have often said that it takes people between 2 and 10 seconds to recover from an interrupt. 2 and 10 seconds, what a range. 10 seconds?
Yeah.
2 seconds? Of course, and even that rule has exceptions. I was once working with a practitioner student who was having some trouble getting the idea of doing pattern interrupts. And I told him, okay, so we're going to go out to lunch, and we did. And I said, next time the waiter shows up, I want you to try the following. You're going to blurt something out that is really ridiculous, that has no frame of reference whatsoever, and watch as it takes them between 2 and 10 seconds. Sure enough, he blurted out his comment, and the waiter came back and fired back a response in a half second, quarter second. No delay whatsoever. I don't know how he was wired to do this, but every rule has exceptions.
Yeah.
So I've often asked questions about applying the rule of thumb. Well, is it easier to reach somebody's internal voice of truth by speaking behind their right ear or their left ear? And the right answer is neither necessarily, unless they happen to have certain emotional anchors to certain directions, and you have to learn to calibrate that with each person anew. Rules of thumb really get people in trouble when you rely on them too heavily, and so that was another discovery. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's also, I think NLP is also a lot about common sense in the end. You know, calibration is, it's a lot about common sense. If you're just going to be, you know, rigid, you're not really going to get anywhere. If you're just going, you know, following letter to letter, every single thing. It's not really like putting together a piece of furniture from you know, a popular furniture store. There has to be all your other senses, your whole being has to be involved in the process. If you're going to get good at it.
Well, yeah, that's cool.
I think that's about just being fully participatory in every experience you have, being there fully with the people that you're with. I would have to say that Rex instilled that in me as well. Rex made it clear that for him, NLP was about enjoying his time more with people, about living a richer life. That meant about enjoying his time and make time more valuable for other people. I think that's important. And yet it's also, at least initially, can be cumbersome to get so good at being fully present and being really extremely aware of what's going on and getting rid of the deletions that adults grow up with and develop. I mean, over time, as people get older, they start throwing out more and more information that they don't think is important. And that's what leads to overgeneralization and distortions and things like that. So I think with NLP skills, it's like getting back to being kids, being much more aware and attuned to people.
That's right. That's a very good way of saying it. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, because it is like that. For us, it was like that. You discover, it's like as if you're almost being reborn. You discover everything all over again. You can just see things differently, can't you?
You can, yeah. It's lovely.
It's amazing. It's an amazing field to be in.
Yeah. And how easy is it for you to get these people to do these exercises then? Once they come out of your seminars?
That's a challenge. It depends on the group. If I've got people who are pretty thorough NLP enthusiasts, then that's pretty easy, typically.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got people already predisposed to being willing to play and being willing to stretch outside their comfort zones.
Yeah.
If I get a group like that together, it's easy from the get-go.
Yeah.
If I'm
he's freezing up.
Corporate group that may not have these kinds of ideas, I've got to shake them up a little bit. And there are all kinds of exercises that can be done to get them a little bit outside their comfort zone. I haven't trained live with John Grinder, but I've certainly watched quite a lot of videos, and I have quite a number of friends who've trained heavily with John. And I can borrow a metaphor from John here, where I remember he described that there's a big difference in the Western world between, or I should say in the world, between comfort versus discomfort, and familiarity with unfamiliarity. And in the West, especially, over time, adults tend to become or attach more comfort to what's familiar, and discomfort to unfamiliar. And you have to break that complex equivalence for people in order for people to really stretch outside their comfort zone. You have to get them willing to comfort to what's unfamiliar and discomfort with that which is, let's say, too familiar or too easily recognized. If people are only attaching comfort to recognition, they never learn. They're not learning. There's some interesting distinctions and observations to make of it.
That's fascinating.
So to really grow, you have to get them outside their comfort zone, willing to look at what's different. So anytime somebody hears something from me, let's say in a corporate setting especially, and they go, oh, I've heard that before. Isn't that just like this other thing? And anytime they say this is just like this other thing, they haven't learned a damn thing. They haven't learned anything. All they recognize and validate what they think they already know.
Yeah, they're trying to make it familiar, yeah. That's it.
They're just trying to put it out the way, really, saying, I'm not going to learn that because I've already done that. Been there, got the hat, got the trophy.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at it again from a different perspective.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So there are some simple that people can do to sort of metaphorically get the experience that what they've in the past attached as discomfort for themselves, outside their normal habits, is just a concept. It's just an internal construct. And the simplest one, of course, is if you clasp your hands. Please do this right now.
All right, okay, yeah.
So when you clasp your hands like this, of course, you typically get one thumb on top of the other. Now, you did this without thinking about it. Your unconscious mind shows which thumb to put on the top, and that's your normal. So I usually get people to clasp differently, to put the other thumb on top. So go ahead and rotate your fingers so the unusual thumb is on top, right? And that feels a little weird at first. Okay, well, you can put your hands down now. Thank you for that.
Okay.
The people who are listening later on will know what I'm talking about here. Because after I get people to do it the unusual way, I have them keep their hands held that way for a period of time while I speak to them about something else.
We've actually got them like that.
There you go.
We've kept them like that in a natural way.
Yeah.
After about a minute or two, of course, at this point, it no longer feels as uncomfortable or as unfamiliar as it did.
That's true.
And then they go back to the original way, and now it feels unusual to them.
See?
But that's the normal way. What happened? Right.
I can't even remember what the original way was anymore. That's cool.
You may be really flexible. Now you can do this with one foot or one knee across the other. It doesn't matter. This is just a metaphor or a behavioral experience of knowing that we create habits and we think that they're so all important, and rarely are they.
Rarely are.
So if I get you to physically feel something that is unfamiliar and then point out that there's some playful learning in that, suddenly they're more willing to stretch than they were before. So these are the kinds of things I might do with a group just to get them more willing to stretch. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's fun. That's amazing.
That sounds like
Actually,
fun.
we're going to keep that with us because whenever we're going to find something a little bit uncomfortable, we're going
we'll remember this. It's very useful, yes.
And we'll remember to associate discomfort with comfort. So you've given us a gift.
So anything that you feel a bit challenged with.
Familiar.
Discomfort with familiar.
Well, yeah, in other words, what you do is you create a sense of, let's say, distaste for being in the same state forever, distaste for staying in the same place and maintaining the same rigid habits forever.
Yeah,
and so
boring.
You start to get a little bit of energy attached to wanting to move, wanting to shift, wanting to change a little bit. And this is quite useful.
Well,
definitely.
It's been fascinating talking to you. We're going to end it here because the line has been a bit dodgy, but we think we've got a nice little interview.
I think so. Yeah, little chat with
you. And
it's very pleasant.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
So, what's your next training? What are you doing next?
Well, I'm running practitioner training as an intensive format, a 10-day course. February 3 through 13, there's one day off in the middle for those math folks out there that are counting and going, that's 11 days.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I'm doing a 3-day voice course, also in Washington, D.C. The prac course is near D.C. Mm-hmm. And the voice course is in D.C. in the end of March, and then I'm doing a 3-day linguistic wizardry course in New York City at the end of April. And that used to be my most popular course. I stopped it in 2009 because I'd trained it 30 times around the globe. But I got enough requests, so I'm bringing it back at the end of April. So lots of stuff coming up. But most important, I would just be if folks would come take a look at my new website. I'm very happy with it.
We'll put the link under the video.
It's full of goodies.
Full of goodies for everyone.
Goodies.
And you're a lovely person as well as a very skilled trainer. So I'm sure anyone that comes across your way will be delighted.
Delighted indeed.
Well, I look forward to meeting you someday soon. I hope so.
Let's hope so.
Okay, bye-bye, Jonathan. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.